Psychology of the sword. The inner path of those who prefer to stay at home. What if your desire to stay home wasn't a flaw, but a sign of spiritual awakening? What if the silence you seek wasn't an escape, but the dojo where your mind trains for life? In Eastern traditions, retreating is not weakness, it's strategy, it's self-mastery. It's the first step of the warrior who wants to conquer himself before facing the world. If you feel that your home is a temple that protects your energy, your mind and your rhythm, then this video will transform the way you see yourself. Sign up now, subscribe to the Katana Mental channel so you don't miss any mind-sharpening insights like a blade. There are moments in life when the outside world seems to speak too loudly, and yet, even with so many calls, so much noise, so many expectations, there is a softer voice that insists on leading us to a place that no one else sees. Silence. In Eastern traditions, this silence is not absence, but an elevated, almost spiritual presence. The idea of retreat is not seen as isolation, but as alignment, a return to one's own essence, like the warrior who, before raising his sword on the battlefield, turns inward to understand why he fights. And perhaps even before understanding against what, he needs to understand for whom. For many who prefer to stay at home, this search is not conscious, but it is profoundly true. It is as if the soul instinctively recognizes the need for a sacred territory where thoughts can settle like dust after a storm. In Zen, there is a concept called zazen. The term literally means sitting to see the mind. And this practice requires neither temples nor mountains nor monastic vows. It requires only presence. It requires only a space where one can hear the flow of one's own thoughts without interruption. For many, the home becomes precisely that space. And when the world judges this recollection as laziness or detachment, Eastern philosophy sees the opposite. It sees discipline, it sees courage, it sees someone who, consciously or not, is sharpening their inner sword before facing the chaos of daily life. Miyamoto Musashi, the most legendary of the samurai, spent long periods away from the world, living as a hermit. He didn't flee from battles. He prepared for them. He understood that the moment of combat is only the visible tip of a journey that takes place entirely in the shadows of the spirit. And so too is his desire to stay home. It's not escape, it's preparation. It's what Zen calls fertile emptiness, the inner space where something new can emerge, where thoughts find form, where the heart finds direction. When you close your bedroom door, you're not simply creating distance from the world. You're creating depth. You're creating inner territory. You're creating space to breathe in a world that demands haste, rigor, and constant effort. And it is in this silent space that your true strength begins to sprout. Because no one can rise in the external world if they have never rested in the inner world. And no one wields a true sword if they have never learned to wield their own thoughts. Thus, the silence you seek is not the absence of life. It is its beginning. It is the invisible dojo where your mind trains to be clearer, firmer, more conscious. It is the call of the spirit saying, before fighting outside, learn to win inside. And if you have heard this call, know that you are already on the path that great masters have walked. While Western psychology describes internalization as an inward flow of libido, Taoism presents the same idea in an even more poetic and profound way. For Tao, everything in the universe has a natural movement, expanding and receding, advancing and returning, acting and pausing, and every time you choose to stay home, you are intuitively obeying this cosmic principle. Nothing in the world lives in constant expansion, not the tide, not the seasons, not the human heart. Expansion needs contraction in the same way that day needs night. And those who feel the need to return home are, even without realizing it, living a rhythm more aligned with nature than they imagine. Taoism calls this return. The word return to the root means returning to the root. The root represents the center, the essence, that which remains even when everything around changes. When you choose not to go out, it's not social disinterest. It's a deep desire to return to your own root. It's an energetic movement that says, before spreading myself across the world, I need to rediscover my point of equilibrium. And that is as natural as breathing. Eastern philosophy teaches that those who constantly live outwardly in stimuli, commitments, interactions, and expectations lose touch with their own center. Musashi said, "The mind must remain tranquil while everything around it moves." But this tranquility is not born amidst agitation. It is born in recollection. It is born in silence. It is born at home, that space where you become entirely yourself again, without masks, without pressures, without obligations. Staying home is energetically a return to the center of your spirit. It's when your mind stops reacting to the external world and begins to align with itself. It's when your body breathes at its own pace, without trying to keep up with anyone else's. It's when your soul can finally rest after so many impacts, voices, sounds, demands, and noises. In Zen, this is called returning to the unified. And only those who return to the unified can act in the world without getting lost in it. Modern psychology says that the introverted mind quickly becomes exhausted by external stimuli. Taoism says that energy needs to flow smoothly, without being constantly pulled out. When the flow becomes constant and forced, the spirit becomes ill. Internalization, therefore, is not fragility. It is energetic wisdom. It is profound self-care. It is the maintenance of spiritual integrity. And here is the truth that Eastern philosophy reveals. Those who learn to return to their center never get lost along the way. Those who learn to rest within themselves do not fear the movement of the world. Those who learn to conserve energy know how to use it precisely, like a samurai who does not waste blows. Internalization is an art form. It is a form of strength. It is a form of clarity. There are people who don't just observe the world, they feel it. They sense the weight of an environment, the hidden tone of a conversation, the vibration of each glance, the invisible impact of every sound. In Western psychology, this is explained by the psychic permeability of the introvert. But in the East, this sensitivity is understood as a rare gift called ki, the heart mind, capable of perceiving what lies beyond words. In cultures like the Japanese, deep sensitivity is not seen as weakness, but as spiritual clarity. It is an inner instinct that recognizes when something threatens your energy, when an environment is charged, when a presence doesn't match your vibration. And this ability, although powerful, requires rest. It requires silence. It requires home. For those who carry a ki more open, going out into the world is not simply walking, it's navigating energetic storms. Every stimulus, every piece of information, every gesture passes through the body, as if it were wind passing through a half-open door. It's natural that this causes wear and tear. In Zen, it is taught that everything that enters through the senses is transformed into emotion, and every emotion needs to be processed in the center of the mind. If you feel tired after noisy, crowded, busy environments, it's not psychological fragility. It's energetic intelligence. Your body perceives before you do. Your spirit hears before you do. And it asks for shelter. The home then ceases to be merely a physical space and becomes a protective field. A temple in the purest sense of the word. The house transforms into an extension of the soul itself, because it is there that you can lower your guard without fear. The East teaches that the warrior who never lowers his sword dies of exhaustion. And many sensitive people live like this when they are away, always alert, always reading the environment, always capturing what no one else sees. Home is the necessary pause to sheath that sword and let it rest. This sensitivity also leads you to seek deeper human connections, because you can sense when there's truth and when there's a mask. This explains why superficial conversations are so tiring. Your body knows that nothing is truly being said. The heart-mind perceives when the vibration doesn't match, and just as water avoids rocky paths, you naturally distance yourself from environments that steal your energy. In Taoism, this is called following the natural path. So when someone says you're too sensitive, remember, you're sensitive enough to perceive life with depth, intensity, and purpose. Your sensitivity is your compass, your perception is your sword, and your home is the temple that protects all of that. There are people who need more than physical presence to feel connected. They need truth, they need soul, they need depth, and this demand is not arrogance, it's alignment. In Eastern philosophy, especially in Bushido, there is a principle called Makoto, which signifies absolute sincerity. For the samurai, It was unacceptable to live superficially, to speak empty words, or to maintain relationships that did not reflect the heart. Similarly, those who prefer to stay at home rarely tolerate artificial interactions. The modern world is full of social noise, rehearsed conversations, and exchanges that nourish no one. And the sensitive, the introspective, the reflective feel all of this in an almost painful way. Musashi said, "Perception is strong, vision is weak." He was referring to the ability to see what lies behind appearances, intentions, disharmony, inconsistencies. This is exactly what profound people instinctively perceive. It's not that you don't like socializing. It's that you can't stand wasting your vital energy in environments where no one is truly present, where masks weigh more than faces, where words have no spirit, where everyone seems to gather to escape themselves. Home in this sense becomes the only territory where authenticity breathes effortlessly. In Zen, superficiality is seen as dust covering the mirror of the mind. To see clearly, it is necessary to clear this dust, and this only happens in silence. When you choose to stay home, you are clearing your mind. You are allowing your thoughts to reveal themselves without interference. You are cultivating what the East calls Wat Kensho, a glimpse of true nature. And this glimpse is lost in the social noise, where everyone tries to fit into expectations, roles, and appearances. The profound individual feels disconnected in social environments, not because they are inadequate, but because they perceive an absence of truth. They feel out of place, not because they are shy, but because they realize their soul is being underutilized there. And then that strange sensation arises, the body present, the mind wandering. A slight but constant dissociation. It is the soul refusing to expend its energy on what has no spirit. Therefore, staying home is not an escape. It's preservation, it's inner fidelity. It's the commitment not to betray yourself just to appear sociable. You refuse, even without realizing it, to live superficially. In the East, this is called living with ki, to live with a whole heart. And those who live like that live more authentically, more consciously, more awake. In Jungian psychology, individuation is the process of becoming who you truly are, not who the world expects, not who the ego desires, but who the soul has always silently been. The East, in turn, describes this same process with other words: satori, wake up; mouse, a mind without interference; Seishin-aligned spirit. Although they use different languages, they are pointing to the same phenomenon. The moment when a person finally listens to themselves deeply enough to recognize themselves. And the curious thing is that this awakening doesn't happen amidst the noise. It happens in quiet reflection. By choosing to stay home, many are unaware that they are entering precisely this territory of individuation. It is within the silence that old thoughts emerge, forgotten emotions resurface, and internal images begin to reorganize themselves. None of this is visible, but all of it is transformative. Individuation, at its core, is the art of integrating the scattered parts of the soul. And this process requires a mind that is not constantly reacting to the external world. It requires space, it requires time, it requires solitude. Musashi, in his final years, retreated to a cave called Reigando, not because he feared the world, but because he understood that there are battles that can only be won in the presence of one's own spirit. He wrote the Book of 5 Rings during this period, a work that speaks more about the path of the mind than about the use of the physical sword. Staying home in this sense is a similar act. It's like entering one's own inner cave, not to escape life, but to understand it. In Zen, there's a teaching that says, the door to liberation opens inward. And that's exactly it. The process of becoming whole begins with introspection. When you stop, breathe, listen to yourself, something begins to align invisibly. Internal disorder settles. The shadow finds its voice. Intuition becomes clearer. These aren't external miracles. They are internal movements that require silence to flourish. Therefore, when you say, "I prefer to stay home," you are actually listening to a deep call from your own spirit. You are responding to the natural movement of individuation, which calls for distance from excess, noise, and distractions to reveal who you truly are. The external world is important, but without the internal world, it has no meaning. As Eastern masters say, whoever masters themselves overcomes any enemy. This mastery is not born in parties, nor in crowds, nor in commitments. It is born in your own space, in your own rhythm, in your own breath. Individuation doesn't happen when you impress the world, but when you finally impress yourself, for the first time by being true to what you feel. Every light carries a shadow, Jung said, and the East reinforces this truth with equal clarity. Any virtue, if exaggerated, loses its balance and becomes poison. Retreat is no exception. Home can be a temple, but it can also become a cave where we forget that a sky exists. Solitude can be medicine, but when used in excess, it can turn into escape, paralysis, or fear. Zen warns, even silence can imprison those who fear sound. It is essential to understand that retreat only fulfills its spiritual function when it is a return to the center, not an attempt to disappear from the world. The home becomes a prison when we stop using it to rest and begin to use it to avoid living. When peace turns into fear, when silence becomes an excuse, when refuge becomes a hiding place. The difference between a temple and a prison is not in the walls, but in the intention. The shadow of this behavior can manifest itself subtly, that growing resistance to going out, that anxiety when thinking about commitments, that feeling that the world outside has become too big, too fast, too threatening. The East describes this state as an imbalance of qi, stagnant energy that doesn't circulate. When internal energy stops moving, it becomes heavy, dense, suffocating. Not because you are weak, but because the spirit needs movement to remain alive. Musashi warned, "He who only trains in the dojo does not know the sword." Seclusion is part of the path, not the entire path. Individuation demands the courage to return to the world, to test oneself, to expand consciousness through experience. The samurai who never leaves the temple will never know if his sword is true. Similarly, the introvert who never leaves home fails to confront his own limitations. The greatest danger of the shadow is that it masquerades as comfort. Home begins to seem like the only safe place, and this appears to be protection, but in reality, it is a call to expansion. Zen teaches that courage is born when fear is recognized with compassion. In other words, leaving the shadow doesn't require brute force, but awareness. Realizing that you are overprotecting yourself is the first step to liberation. Staying home is sacred, as long as there's also space to breathe in the world. Eastern balance dictates half withdrawal, half presence. Because the soul needs silence, but it also needs the wind. It needs depth, but it also needs life. When the shadow appears, it's not an enemy, it's a messenger. It says, "You are ready to expand a little more." And so the spiritual journey continues, from home to the world, from the world to home, like a natural breath. Within each human being exists a universe that no telescope can reach. Jung called this territory the unconscious, a space of symbols, memories, instincts, images, and forces that shape our lives without our realizing it. In the East, especially in Buddhism, this same space receives another name, Alaya Vijnana. Consciousness, a warehouse of consciousness, is a vast field where all experiences, emotions, and impressions are deposited like seeds. They germinate when they find silence, and that is why people who prefer to stay at home seem to live in depths that others rarely reach. Solitude creates the ideal conditions for this inner universe to reveal itself. It's no exaggeration to say that when you close the door and isolate yourself for a few moments, you're entering a dimension where everything that's true within you begins to find its voice. Images that couldn't be processed during the day return. Thoughts you avoided are reflected on the inner walls. Stored emotions seek meaning. None of this happens in the rush, in traffic, in quick conversations, or in noisy environments. The soul doesn't speak loudly, it speaks in signals. And those who learn to stay home learn to hear them. In the Zen tradition, this inner universe is not seen as an enemy to be conquered, but as a silent master to be understood. Archetypes, intuitions, ancestral fears, and creative forces reside there. The unconscious is the guardian of the answers that the rational mind cannot formulate. Therefore, those who cultivate silence possess a natural capacity for insight, for perceiving solutions even before thinking about them. Wisdom is born from the inner realm, not from external logic. The home, then, becomes the altar of this inward journey. If the world demands that you be quick, productive, responsive, your home asks only that you be true to yourself. It is there among your objects, your rituals, and your silence that you reconnect with this symbolic field. It is no coincidence that so many artists, spiritual masters, and reclusive thinkers produce their greatest works in solitude. They learn to dialogue with this vast inner territory. The East describes the unconscious as a deep lake, calm on the surface, vibrant below. When we are exposed to excessive stimuli, the surface of this lake becomes agitated, making it impossible to see the bottom. But when we are silent, the water settles, and then, slowly, forms, answers, and understandings begin to emerge. It is at this moment that insight is born, that sudden clarity that seems to come from nowhere. In fact, it comes from where it's always been, inside you. Therefore, when someone judges your preference for staying home as isolation, they don't understand that you are, in fact, accessing your own sacred space. You are cultivating wisdom that springs from within, not from without. You are allowing symbols to flourish, emotions to breathe, fears to be understood, and your consciousness to grow from the inside out. Those who know their own inner world do not get lost in the external world. We live in a world that idolizes haste. Being fast has become synonymous with being competent. Being busy has become synonymous with being important. And being always accessible has become synonymous with being useful. But for the East, this frenetic pace is not a sign of evolution. It's a sign of disconnection. Nothing in nature works continuously and at an accelerated pace. Trees don't grow at a constant speed. The heart doesn't always beat the same way. The tides don't rise without pause, and neither does the human spirit. Taoism teaches that each being carries its own rhythm, an inner compass that cannot be forced without causing harm. This rhythm is the energetic dance of the soul. When you choose to stay home because the world seems too fast, you are not being lazy, you are being wise. You are respecting the time of your soul, which means the natural way of being. In Zen, this notion is expressed in the maxim, "When you drink water, know if you are thirsty." Many live disconnected from their own rhythm, rushing because everyone else is rushing, speeding up because everyone else is speeding up, keeping busy because everyone else is busy. But those who prefer to stay home realize something that others forget. There is a time to move forward and a time to retreat, a time for the world and a time for oneself, a time for movement and a time for stillness. This balance is as essential as breathing. Inhale, expand to the world. Exhale, return to one's own center. Staying home is exhaling. Musashi said that a true warrior doesn't act on impulse, but with precision. He waits for the right moment, the right rhythm, the right breath. You do the same when you respect your own time. You don't go out when your energy is low. You don't force socialization when your soul asks for silence. You don't rush when your body asks for rest. You follow your inner rhythm, not the rhythm that the world imposes. In Taoism, when someone lives disconnected from this rhythm, fatigue of the soul arises, anxiety, tension, emotional exhaustion. But when the individual returns to the natural flow, peace emerges. Therefore, staying home may be the most Tao-aligned action you can take. It is when the spirit reorganizes what has been experienced, the body rests from excessive stimuli, and the mind purifies itself from external noise. The secret to Eastern balance is simple. Never violate the rhythm of your own soul. When you force yourself to go out, to be social, to follow artificial rhythms, your energy becomes fragmented. But when you follow your own rhythm, everything falls back into place. You not only live better, you live more whole. In the modern world, those who respect their own pace are seen as slow, but in Eastern philosophy, those who run without awareness are seen as lost. True power lies not in walking fast, but in walking at one's own time. The inner life is a sacred place, but no spiritual path is completed solely in the caves of the spirit. In the East, especially in Buddhism and Bushido, there is a fundamental law: balance. The warrior does not live only in the dojo, nor does the monk live only in the temple. Both understand that contemplation and action are two sides of the same blade. If one is missing, the sword loses strength, loses direction, loses meaning. For those who prefer to stay at home, this balance does not arise naturally. It is an art to be developed. Zen teaches, wisdom is born in silence, but blossoms in life. This means that withdrawal is the root, but experience is the trunk that sustains growth. When you withdraw, you know yourself. When you act, you expand. And the true middle path emerges when both forces work together, not in opposition. The mistake is not in preferring to stay at home. The mistake is in believing that the inner world is sufficient in itself. The human spirit needs to feel life, even in small doses, to remain awake. Bushido, the way of the warrior, reinforces this union between retreat and action. A samurai would spend long hours in meditation, but also faced battles. He contemplated death in silence, but also honored life in motion. Musashi, for example, alternated periods of profound solitude with duels that tested his presence and focus. He said, "Know the broad path by knowing the narrow path. The home is the narrow path. The world is the broad path." For you, this might mean something simple. Not forcing yourself to go out, but allowing yourself to go out when you feel your spirit is strong enough. It's not about seeking out crowds, parties, or intense environments. Balance begins with small steps: a walk, a quiet coffee, a meeting with someone who truly matters. It's not about conquering the world out there. It's about allowing your spirit to breathe outside the walls that protect you. Taoism reinforces this principle by saying, flexibility is life, rigidity is death. When you become rigid and withdrawn, you lose movement. When you open yourself up, even a little, you allow new experiences to revitalize your energy. It's not about ceasing to be who you are. It's about not closing yourself off to what you can become. So, the middle path is the art of navigating between two worlds: the inner world, where you are nourished, and the outer world, where you grow. Enlightenment doesn't exist solely in solitude. Enlightenment exists in conscious contact with life. Introspection is your strength. Action is your expansion. Together, they form the path of the warrior who lives awake. We've reached the point where retreat ceases to be merely a behavior and becomes a path, the invisible sword that every sensitive person carries within them, even when no one notices. Eastern philosophy teaches that every spiritual practice must result in interior brightness, a brilliance that cannot be seen with the eyes but is felt in its presence. And those who prefer to stay at home, when they consciously experience their seclusion, develop precisely this silent light: clarity, focus, depth, authenticity, purpose. Conscious introspection transforms the mind into a blade, not a sharp one, but a precise one. A sword that separates the essential from the superfluous, the true from the illusory, the profound from the superficial. Musashi called this inner vision, the ability to see beyond appearances. He said, "True victory is victory over oneself." Every time you choose to stay home to listen to yourself and not to hide, you are winning invisible battles that many never fight. Zen describes this stage as everyday lighting, the ability to act with presence, even in the simplest tasks. It's tidying the house as if organizing the spirit. It's preparing a meal as if honoring the body. It's sitting in silence as if conversing with one's own heart. Everything becomes spiritual practice when consciousness awakens. Transforming your retreat into purpose means not only using solitude to rest, but to grow. It's the moment when silence ceases to be a refuge and becomes a source. You realize that everything you sought outside was, in fact, waiting within you. Your home is no longer a place to hide from the world. It's a place to find yourself before returning to it. Inner light is born when reflection is not just a pause, but a deepening. When you stop occupying space in the world and start occupying it with intention. When every gesture becomes more conscious, every word more truthful, every action more aligned with who you truly are. This light makes no noise, but transforms everything it touches. For the East, this is the pinnacle of the spiritual path, living from the inside out, not reacting to the world, but radiating towards it, not seeking approval, but offering presence, not fleeing from chaos, but traversing it with serenity. The invisible sword is this silent force born from a profound understanding of oneself. Retreat doesn't distance you from the world, it prepares you to enter it as someone more whole and therefore more enlightened. If the silence of your home has always called to you, now you know, it was never weakness, it was a path, it was wisdom. It was your soul trying to remind you who you are before the world tells you who you should be. If this video touched something within you, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share this message with someone who is also seeking a path of depth and truth. And now I ask you, in all sincerity, when you close your bedroom door, what does your soul finally manage to say?